Another launch week in the books. It is now launch week 4, officially went through the entire week, and an amazing collection of announcements as usual, really across the board, across all of our products, had some great new features that came out. Typically for this wrap party, just going to go through the week and talk about each of the announcements and what we're most excited about for that. To get started, I'm Bob Tordella, help manage our sales and partnerships. And with me, I also have Nathan Wallace, if you want to say hi and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Nathan Wallace. I'm the founder and CEO here at Turbot. Spend a lot of my time working with Bob and working with the product team, etc., across the whole thing. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and Cody?
Yeah, hi, my name's Cody, currently a software architect with Turbot, working on a variety of products from guardrails to different pipes products, so a little bit of everything.
So on Monday, 2 great announcements, one for Steampipe and one for Flowpipe. For Steam, let's just get started with the Steampipe announcement. So this one was called connection level qualifiers for faster Steampipe queries and lower API load. Mouthful, but some really powerful features in that. And maybe Nathan, if you can just talk us through what are connection level qualifiers and how is this making a better performance of Steampipe?
Steampipe, as most people know, will call APIs in real time when it's trying to do a query. So it converts a SQL query down to API calls and goes and gets the data it needs, right? And so we're really smart about that. We try to just get, if you request certain columns, we'll only call the APIs for those columns, or also we'll filter the rows you've requested according to what you asked for, right? And we just got a lot smarter about filtering the rows is basically the key part of this announcement. So for a long time, if you did a query like, find me EC2 instances where the ID equals X, we'll just go get that one row or that one instance from the account, and that's it, we're done. Now, if you added, a region to that, we'd be even smarter about it. And we've done this for a long time. If you said where region equals US East 1, we know we only need to look in US East 1 for that region. We don't have to check all the other regions in your account because we know where to look, right? What we didn't know until now was if you said where my account ID equals X, we'd still go and look through the aggregator at all the other accounts across all the regions and all the things to try and find your stuff. Now with connection level qualifiers, we'll actually smart enough to know from the account ID which connection you're talking about in Steampipe, and then we'll only query the APIs for that particular connection, right? Now that I've given AWS examples, we've done the same changes for subscriptions in Azure and projects in GCP. And basically what we're doing is just narrowing down the amount of area we have to search for your query result. But that has really massive results. Like if you've got like 100 accounts with 20 regions, you can limit it way down. Like by limiting the account, you're doing 1% of the work. You're dropping 99% of the work, right? And so that's way faster for a start. And second, just so many less API calls, right? Because we just don't have to gather all that data and then drop it at the end in Postgres. Instead, now we only gather what we need. So yeah, really excited to get that out there. It's a tricky feature. We had to work out how to do, how to map like an account ID to a connection and work that through the aggregators and all that sort of stuff. But we've got it all working. It's working really great. We've updated a bunch of our queries in the various mods to take advantage of it by passing through the right qualifiers in those queries. So it has a big difference in some of those. So something like an insights mod, which is typically like saying, give me this bucket, for example, and then find all the resources around it. We can now look at the bucket and it's ARN and go, oh, with that ARN, we know the region, we know the account or whatever those things might be. And then we can focus the other queries just down to that search space. So it's a lot quicker to do that. And of course, these qualifiers work through joins and all that sort of stuff. So, it's really powerful for that. So yeah, connection level qualifiers should just make your stuff run faster. And if you optimize your queries a bit more, you'll get even more benefit. And
so that feature was specifically in the SDK, correct? And then
technically, it's not even a CLI feature. It's technically an SDK feature. So we've been rebuilding all the plugins to take advantage of that new SDK version.
Yeah. And I think the most impacted will probably be like, Amazon, Azure, Google plugins that we have, because many people have many connections in those, and that's really what's going to get taken advantage of.
For something like GitHub, most people would have one connection, right? Or, or whatever, OpenAI or whatever. They've normally got one connection they're talking to. Amazon, our users might have hundreds of connections or whatever from there. So that's where you get massive benefit because you're just targeting the ones you need, right? And similarly for Azure and Google.
Yeah, and with a number of community members having hundreds of like cloud accounts with that plugin,
Right.
it's going to be massively beneficial for them.
Yeah, I
And
mean, again, in the post, I think we show like a 7 times speed up on that specific example, but the bigger win is like the 96% reduction in your API calls or whatever, like to achieve the same thing. Like the load is just massively reduced.
and all that pays a benefit into Turbot Pipes as well. So Steampipe being, and so on the other announcement on Monday was with Flowpipe, and that one's because it really brings home to like the most common use cases that a lot of community members are using with Flowpipe, where they're querying information out of AWS or another cloud environment, and then they want to react to that data. And one of the top use cases is around FinOps or cost control. And this kind of introduced more of this like detect and respond type of pipelines that were set up in a mod. So Nathan, maybe you want to walk us through like what's in that announcement?
Look, Flowpipe is really designed to do the operations or change on your environment, right? And to do that in a way that uses workflow. Often to make decisions, you need humans, right? We love to do them with full automation, but decisions to change your environment can be a little bit scary, and so you kind of want to work your way up to that. We, for a long time, of course, have done the AWS Thrifty mod, Powerpipe mod that works with Steampipe, and so it will find lots of opportunities and savings in your environment. Cody's done a lot of work on that with his team, so that's been great, and it finds things for sure. One of the things we see people talking about, though, out there in the forums or other things when there's a new FinOps tool is like, oh, this is great, but man, I wish it would just take action for me or not let me get into this state in the first place, because I've spent all this money before I even realized what was going on, right? But to do that, you have to take action, of course, right? And that's what detect and correct mods in Flowpipe do. So they're really set up. The Thrifty one we've announced this week has 30 out of the bait. I think the blog post says 29. You got a bonus one, but basically, 30 of those, for things like releasing an unattached EIP or like trying to work out what to do with a instance that's wrong or stuff like that. Just really cost-saving opportunities where we can take action. So they're all pipelines are available for you just to turn on now. And there's 2 ways you can run it, right? First, you can run it sort of interactively like a wizard, and it works with Slack. It's quite amazing, actually, when you do it. You just run it and it starts messaging you in Slack, goes, oh, I found 4 elastic IPs. Do you want to release this one? Do you want to leave this one alone? What do you want to do? And you just answer the questions in Slack, responds back, pipeline continues, and then calls like the under the hood, that AWS CLI action to actually do the job. So you're just sitting there being asked questions, right? And working through it. So after you run through the wizard, if you want to do that first, that's cool. But then you can turn it on in like trigger mode. So it's just watching all the time. And then it's just sitting there and checking, whatever you want every 15 minutes, every hour, it's up to you, right? And just looking for that case. And the minute it finds it, it'll just pop a message into your Slack. You choose what to do. Yeah, oh, whoops. Yeah, release that, please. Or no, I'm still using it, leave it alone. And it keeps going. So it's really this interactive, like, bot at this point that's playing with you from a workflow point of view. And you could route that wherever you want using the notifiers in Flowpipe, of course. Send it straight to the team that's using it. Totally up to you. So you can stay on top of all those things all the time. So we're really excited about that detect and correct model. We also have like a little detect and correct separate mod library we're using for that, which is exciting. So we'll be able to keep building on that idea from here. But do it interactively, do it triggered, do human approval, or do a complete automated response to it. But basically, you can be completely in control of your AWS costs at this point with out-of-the-box stuff, nothing to build. So it's great.
Yeah, and all, of course, open source goes without saying, being Flowpipe. So really looking forward to the community taking that way beyond what our initial set of 30
100%.
controls, but then, of course, security controls and type of capabilities. But I am excited for the kind of the next suite of mods that we'll be working on and getting out there. But definitely the community, please contribute at least ideas and code if possible. So
totally, they're really easy to write too because of the way it's set up. So building the responses is trivial. Like writing a new pipeline was like, once we got the model down, we pumped those things out. So it'll be really easy for people to get involved and add their own. It all builds on our AWS library in Flowpipe 2, by the way, if you're not already using that. Like it's just made it so easy for us to take actual actions at the end. So yeah, it's cool.
One other thing that I love about the mods that we released and all the pipelines in there like you guys had mentioned, we have library mods and we have some sample mods in Flowpipe today. But for me, this was really the next level of mods that we can do and showcase how easy it is, number one, to create these mods and these pipelines, and number two, what Flowpipe can really do. So I think it's, these mods and do such a great job at showing what Flowpipe is capable of, and also how easy it is to write. But overall, it's just, for me, such a more compelling story on why I would personally want to use Flowpipe and use it for all of our own internal accounts and look for any cost savings available. And just really that next level of set of pipelines, building on what we already have today.
No, that's exactly it. Like, I think with Powerpipe and Steampipe, one of the things we learned was by building like the compliance mods, all those things that people can run out of the box, it just adds so much value, right? You can build your own mods, and people do all the time, but run your own queries or whatever, and Flowpipe has that capability. But now this is our first real mod that's like, hey, here it is out of the box. You can just run it like this and get all of these common patterns solved for you. So, it really shows what's going to be possible in the Flowpipe ecosystem for us.
Moving forward throughout the week, for Tuesday was a big announcement for Guardrails. Really super happy to see a brand new scope in Guardrails. So actually last launch week, we introduced a new scope, meaning, we've had AWS, Azure, Google as major integration scopes with thousands of controls for many years. Last launch week, we introduced ServiceNow, which was all about integrations to and from Guardrails and the cloud environments in ServiceNow. And then this week was a major announcement on Kubernetes being a brand new scope for us. And I know that introduced a lot of new integration possibilities with maybe like OS query and how we would get those clusters and then talk back to Guardrails. It's a whole different ecosystem. And I know, Cody, you spearhead a lot of that architecture and development. Maybe you can talk us through, what those features are, how does it work from a Guardrails perspective, and any lessons learned as you guys were developing it.
Yeah, great feature to get out. We were really excited about it. Something we've been wanting to do really for years at this point, and we kind of had different parts of it throughout. And I think we finally found the right pieces to kind of put together and really create a nice, easy to use solution for users. And really, I think for me, high level goal looking at the project was, how can we allow users to easily deploy something into their existing Kube clusters? It's not just for new, but for existing Kube clusters anywhere they may sit, and really capture all of their current Kube resources and changes to those resources as well, get that data into Guardrails and CMDB, be able to take normal sets of checks and create policies against that resource data coming in from Kube. And like I mentioned, Bob, also then actually complete the kind of process by being able to send that data over to ServiceNow and put all that data into tables, just like we do for AWS, Azure, and GCP resources as well. And again, I think main highlight for me really of all of this was, how can we make it easy for users? There's a lot of different ways that you can deploy different agents, different tools, or so many ways to do it. So I think one goal that we really focused on as a team was, how do we make this easy, and how do we provide users right set of instructions and make it easy to manage across one or hundreds or thousands of clusters as well.
Yeah, I know that's a struggle, right? On like, what are easy instructions, what are common ones for folks to deploy, because it's Kubernetes anywhere, right? I mean, it is just Kubernetes, but these are hosts that can live or clusters that can live locally, on-prem, in Amazon, Azure, Google, in all different types of environments. And so looking at the right way to do it agnostically, I'm sure was a challenge. And then how to enroll those into Guardrails in a consistent and secure way.
You had mentioned before a little bit of OS query, leveraging other popular tools out there like Helm, and just trying to use what's really tried and true out in the community today, and then really bringing it together and with, like you said, native API integration back into the Guardrails workspaces and clusters as well. I think that's where we overall found that right flow and right process, which in turn gives users hopefully an easy way to kind of enroll however many clusters they want to at scale.
I mean, once the Kube cluster is associated or connected to Guardrails, I mean, it just looks and feels like any other cloud resource. I mean, it's tracking it discovers all the configurations in that cluster, like the replica sets, the deployments, config maps, etc. And then the CMDB works and feels the same way. It's tracking all the activity, all the configuration drift, which is super powerful because Kube lives all over. and there's not a central console for it, but Guardrails is giving you that, CMDB, that configuration management database, plus the audit activity pulled out where you could see the configuration diff. It is super powerful as essential like pane of glass. Couple that with standard guardrail controls to automatically alert on any configuration drift that's not approved, or maybe the labels are incorrect or the applications. Those are just common guardrails you'd see on a GCP resource or an Amazon resource. So that consistent look and feel in one central console, I think is extremely powerful. And I know there's a number of enterprise customers that are excited to implement it. So we've heard some great feedback from the initial folks. Nice to have that Kubernetes like security posture management coupled with cloud security posture management all in one kind of governance platform. So excited that we've extended that into that scope. One of the other announcements was the sync to ServiceNow. And so in our prior launch weeks, we've announced AWS, Azure, and Google discovery right to ServiceNow. And so that any new resources, updates, or deletions, they're not only going to guardrails and tracking all that activity history, it also then syncs to the ServiceNow CMDB. And Kubernetes, like coming out with that scope and then also coming out with the ServiceNow sync right away, I think is really powerful. And especially for a lot of our enterprises who are challenged with trying to keep up with the pace of their Kubernetes clusters and the sprawl of that on-prem or across the clouds, trying to bring that back to the enterprise CMDB is critical. And I think we've built the right pattern there that's working well. I know ServiceNow was new for you when you were working with it.
Yeah.
Any kind of tidbits or things that were interesting as you're working on that integration?
I don't know how interesting this is, but like you had mentioned, we had patterns established from when we did it for AWS, Azure, GCP, and kind of all along. I think one keynote of the story for me was that it just feels for kube resource, it feels a bit of the same. So even when creating policies and looking at the patterns of how do we help users determine what type of kube data they want to sync into their ServiceNow instances, it was actually kind of the same. So looking at the ServiceNow policies for syncing kube data looks almost exactly the same as it does for Azure and GCP. So being able to reference those and understand how to create them or set them up once I'm in my workspace, again, felt like everything else. And it was really nice to be able to have that consistent set of policies and patterns throughout. So that for me was probably the best or most interesting part of being able to adapt the same patterns we have there for syncing ServiceNow, just the same for Kube. So it looks and feels almost exactly the same. And overall, it just made managing that so much easier for me, like you said, especially for me, someone who's new to that kind of ServiceNow landscape or how we sync data in, just having those consistent patterns and being able to apply them so easily into the Kube resources as well in the tables, I think was just perfect and just made it so much easier to get into.
One of the things we've definitely, heard talking with people and working with people on their ServiceNow stuff is that they need, the ability to decide what they put in their ServiceNow cluster and where to put it. This is like constant feedback, like which columns do I want, where do I put them? And if you think about something like Kube, where, it can be chaos down in there, like containers and stuff running around, like you got to choose what you're going to track, right? What's so great about this sort of solution end to end was first, it uses a lot of components. So the Kube stuff we're using in the cluster, that uses our Steampipe plugin, so that's built into that, right? So now it's just queries, so they feel familiar, and you can choose the columns you care about to get that information into guardrails. And then once it's in guardrails, you can choose the columns, which would often be the same, but you can modify or choose which columns you want in ServiceNow as well. So there's just simplicity and flexibility through that end to end, right? And that's really important because of the level of noise and churn and stuff you can have in this sort of Kube environment to keep that, simple, repeatable, and a choice for what you're going to track there. And of course, the fact that guardrails is so real time or very near time in this, you can choose how fast you want that information to come in from Kube in this case as well. But that means it's just so much better than a once daily scan or something like that. You've got a lot of flexibility. Okay, I want these assets every 10 minutes, or I want these ones every few hours. Like you've got that flexibility in this setup, which is really powerful.
And then on Wednesday, we had actually another Guardrails day, which was great to see because we just had so much coming out the door that we need to focus 2 days on it. That whole day was focused on CIS, so Center for Internet Security benchmarks for AWS, Azure, and Google. We announced a refresh to get to the later versions of those benchmarks, as well as ways that you can ensure that those assessments are always in compliant to the recommendations. CIS seems to be, one of the more used or asked for type of security benchmarks, which is why we, have those into the product. But the benefits of putting that into guardrails is that it's continuously assessing for CIS. So whenever there's a change in the environment, those CIS controls are then running, reporting out, alerting. And looking at some of the other launch weeks that we've done in the past, it's leveraging a lot of the foundations that we already put in place, like notification features that we had, as well as the quick actions. We often talk about, especially from the Turbot community, folks are using different compliance modules. CIS is one of the top ones. Amazon is probably the more used or more requested across the community. Maybe just some feedback on these type of features that are in the product, what we're seeing as beneficial for the customers using guardrails for this. And then if you want to talk about some of the samples and the things that we're coming out with for remediation.
Definitely a lot there to unpack.
Yeah.
Look, we've had CIS reports for quite a while, and they're great, and people want to know how am I compliant with this. One of the things we've heard from our customers is that their rules are more like, I need to be compliant with AWS CIS 2 or 1.4, not 3. My org hasn't caught up with that yet, or I'm not ready for that, whatever it might be. Now we support 2 and 3 for AWS. Those have both been announced this week. But one thing that's quite, I think, unique about what we do in Steampipe, Powerpipe, as well as in Guardrails, is we allow you to assess against the exact standard. There's a lot of tools that will do compliance reporting, but they're kind of like, oh, generally these are CIS controls and it's a bit looser. It's less to be on an exact standard. So we're telling you, this is where you're at for CIS 2, if that's what you want, or CIS 3, if that's what you want. So that's an exact thing. With it just being so instantly real time, that's super powerful, right? Because you know straight away when you're out of compliance. And if you're not knowing straight away, the fundamental question to discuss with your compliance team is, how long is it okay for this to be insecure? Is a day all right? Is an hour okay? Is a week good? Like, what's the question? Like, what are you going to do about it? The question, how long is it okay not to be good, right? And so we believe to be secure, you've got to be secure, like up to date, up to minute. It doesn't take long for someone to get all your stuff if you're wrong, right? And so the real-time nature of those checks works great. Then, of course, Guardrails will do the notification to you, and those built-in quick actions are magic. They send it to you in Slack, and they go, what do you want to do? Or by email, what do you want to do? Do you want to shut it down? Do you want to change it? Like instant predefined actions to take with that, if that's what you would like to do as a team, right? So those quick actions are really powerful combined with those CIS checks. So that's always been awesome. That works really great. Moving on to the remediation part though, from the first day of Turbot, it was built on the vision of saying, we got to fix these problems, not just report on them. Right? We want to fix these problems. We need to be in control of the environment. That's what you need to do to work well as an organization, right? And so we're very excited about the other part of the announcement this week, which was really, the real-time enforcements for CIS AWS 3, right? Or AWS CIS version 3. And what that did was we took a lot of our existing guardrails or controls that we had in Turbot for automatic remediation, automatic fix, like literally just fix it instantly, right? And then we expanded those more for any gaps we had, and we've mapped all of that to CIS. So now we're providing you with a set of like smart folders or Terraform samples you can deploy into your Guardrails cluster, just run them as check or turn them onto enforcement to take action to make sure you're green against that CIS all the time. And that's not a small statement, like that's a big thing. There's tens or hundreds of checks. I forget, it's like about 100-ish checks in that AWS CIS. Like it's a lot of stuff, right? And now we're sitting there and saying to you, we have the exact controls you need to make this green and stay green. Everyone else might be able to tell you if you're red or if you're green, and that's a good thing. We do that as well. Reporting's great, but the real goal here is to be green, right? And it's not easy being green, as Kermit would say, but it's a lot easier now with these new controls and packs we're printing out for you to be able to just turn on.
It's super powerful, like when you're ready for that remediation, to literally, and you can see it in the demo, it's like a complete control setting, everything becomes compliant instantly, and then continuously is managed on any drift.
Yep.
So it's the upfront fix plus the ongoing, super powerful. But even to your point on just if you're in more of an assessment mode in Guardrails and not enacting change, when you're running those reports, like if you ran it weekly, but what about all the transient resources that came and went in between? I had no idea what had happened or if they were compliant. Right. So the idea of real-time event-driven, I mean, this is what Guardrails was founded on. per your point. And so just to see that come together with a very practical set of benchmarks that most people use is, excited to see that in the platform refreshed and then coupled with these samples. I know the
journey we see customers being on all the time. They start with, okay, let me check my stuff, right? Maybe they have some tool doing that, or they doing that in Guardrails, doesn't matter, but they've done some checking and they're realizing I can't keep up.
Right.
I can't win this battle. I can't get to green, right? It's just too hard. Orgs are moving too fast. I don't have permission to do things right. And I really believe now we have the sequencing guardrails that gets you to green, right? So first you check if you're green. Now then we brought in the quick actions with notifications. So it checks it and it tells you straight away, and it gives you the option to run a fix immediately. So you can do it gradually, fix them one at a time, do it. You're in control as a human with those quick action capabilities. And then after you get comfortable that it's working, or you've nailed those down, then you want to stay green, right? And that's where you need that ongoing enforcement control, which we have in Guardrails as well. So we really have each of the answers on that sort of getting to green and staying green situation for your CIS.
On Thursday, we then had a couple different announcements that they kind of tie together thematically with working with mods. And so as a starting point, we talk about Powerpipe and making that easier, more flexible with working with local mods. And so Nathan, if you want to talk through the benefit there for mod developers and what that new feature is.
One of the things in the mods in Powerpipe and Flowpipe actually is that they're very composable. So you can write yourself a mod and you can depend on other mods. In Powerpipe, you can build a dashboard in a mod and then create a second mod and say, well, I want to use that, embed that dashboard here. Or you can create queries in the mod and then have a second mod that depends on it and reuses those queries. Same for controls, same for benchmarks. So this is amazing because we've published these massive mods with like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of controls, benchmarks, dashboards, and all that sort of stuff. And now what we're seeing service organizations do or enterprises do, etc., is say, I love those, but I have specific ones I want for my organization or the things I want to tailor for me. And so what I'm going to do is I want to build my own mod and pull out the pieces of that I need, right? And they're doing that and it's working really great. That's always been possible. What was hard was doing some of the mod dependencies on that with a bit more flexibility, right? So if you wanted to build a mod and then at the same time develop a library mod along with it, you couldn't do that unless you pushed it up to GitHub and versioned it and all that sort of stuff. Like we relied a lot on the tagging and the versioning in Git for that dependency flow. We've really expanded the options around those dependencies at this point. So you can depend on semantic versioned thing in GitHub. That's a great way to publish things, stay in control, very, very GitOps. It's nice, right? And now you can do a simple tag, which is very similar to the first one, but not quite the same. Third, branches, which are really great. So if you're used to just pushing the main, right, or pushing to some development branch, whatever it might be, you can now do a dependency based on a branch, right? And then fourth, just a local file system. So you can start a new mod and start a second mod next to it and say, I depend on this other mod on the same local file system and just build, right? And so that's just so much easier than having to push to Git and do all those things to get your mod going. For most users, they won't necessarily need that, but if you're a mod developer, this is a really, really flexible and powerful approach for being able to do that work and manage those dependencies, which is great. It's out in Powerpipe now. For those who enjoy the inner machinations, it's actually part of our pipe fittings library. So we expect to bring it to Flowpipe soon. We get a lot of those benefits now from reuse on some of those components. But it's a great step forward for Powerpipe there. If you're doing those sort of mod dependency development things, just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, someone who's developed a lot of mods with dependencies and stuff. I will say there are ways I used to hack around it where you could modify the locally installed mod dependency, but you go deep in this directory and it was very fragile. If you kind of updated, you lost it. So overall, the ability to have just native support to reference another mod somewhere else locally in your file system, not have to hack around in those installed places. Really nice addition and should just make mod development a lot smoother for me personally too.
And we really love it and we want to see people building on these mods, treating them as libraries, treating them as components they can reuse and remix, because we don't all need to solve these same problems over and over again. Like the queries exist now. We've got I think we have the most comprehensive set of security checks you can do, I think, for any product, paid or open source. We've got them. And that, is now available at your fingertips just to remix and reuse. So go nuts, contribute, let us know how to keep improving those mods and make them easier for you.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of that remix and reuse. It's so powerful, just coming up with new situations, new benchmarks that are very personalized for customers, or a consultancy taking that and making it their own, for their own assessments or client engagements. Starting to see the growth there, even just some that are just very specific to like a migration and having a personal dashboard just to track that. It's been some really cool.
Yeah, well architected, there's all sorts of things people have been building there. It's great.
So it's great that we're making it more flexible and easier to do it locally. And so that then feeding into the Turbot Pipes ecosystem. And I know some of these features are really beneficial for us for the announcement that we have for bringing in private repositories, as well as the GitHub integration. So maybe you want to start with the private repo part of that, and then kind of talk about the GitHub integration, Ethan.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty related, to be honest. So the private repos work, but the key thing is now in Turbot Pipes, like we've got people already using custom mods in Turbot Pipes, but honestly, it was too painful. They had to update and push versions, etc. All that's gone now. Now it's just magic. You go add an integration, hook it up to your GitHub, give it permission, you're done. That's it. Now, when you want to install a new mod, choose the repo, and away you go. So it's really easy to click through that and set all of that up. And then the true magic is every time you push to the branch or whatever, Pipes updates instantly. So it's just, if you're doing development of your own mod now, working with that in Pipes is just so seamless, right? It's a really great developer experience, building that, deploying that, running those for the other users in your organization. Like it's a real end-to-end flow right now that just is literally the easiest way to build and deploy dashboards with our stuff without any doubt. So excited to have that out there. I know our team is very excited to have that because we do a lot of our own dashboards for various SOC activities we run, or like other things, cost checks we run, etc. Checking all the licenses, our things. We've got dashboards and benchmarks for everything, and for us it's just going to make it so much easier to manage and deploy those out into Pipes. So can't wait to see people really run with their custom mods now that it's just so easy.
That's always one of the things I love about working in Powerpipe, is that even just locally, you're developing, making changes, and then you could see the dashboard immediately. It's like this live dashboard coding, which is awesome. And now it's, once you publish, it's the same thing, but now running in the SaaS, it's just a nice seamless experience, just as you're developing your mod. So
truly Git is the collaboration mechanism for that. We believe in that, right? DevOps should be driven from code, etc. We're huge believers in that model. That's why our dashboards are code-based. All of our pipelines are code-based. We believe that's what you want. You want the control of code. You want the flexibility of code, and you want the collaboration that comes with Git and that code, right? And this totally unlocks that. The thing about you mentioned about local Powerpipe development is so true. Like, yes, you can do it with your own local Steampipe, local Powerpipe, run it. But also, if you're using Pipes, you can do local Powerpipe combined with your Pipes database out there, right? Like you can just point to that workspace. So you can literally build a dashboard locally, see it, go, that's great, publish it to GitHub, and it'll instantly appear up on Pipes and look the same, right? Like that's amazing, right? And literally is a push away. It happens in a second. So it's really cool.
Yep, and then that just updates everything underneath. So if you're doing the scheduled tasks and notifications, like those,
yeah, and if you want to use branches, great. If you want the absolute accuracy of versions, we support that too. So you can choose how you want to manage that in your prod.
Yeah, and that private repo part, I mean, we've heard from a number of community members that, although we've supported custom mods through public repos, having a private repo could be, just as important. Even though, the whole premise is open source and it is this dashboard code, but sometimes you might have personal information in there or private, or you're just not ready to share it with the world, right? And that's becomes really nice for folks that have been requesting that for a bit.
Yeah, and again, because all the remixing works in that scenario too, by the way, so you can build your own private one. So you might just be, you know what, I want to combine this GitHub report with this AWS report, with this one from Tailscale, whatever. you can just build a mod that combines those things together and make your own dashboards for exactly what you need. And it's great.
Part of that is like a tighter GitHub organization or a GitHub integration within Pipes, not only for this purpose, but also it is helpful with the connections as well.
Not yet is the bottom
Okay.
line. So yeah, but we hope to see it going that way. We think integrations should allow us to then create a connection for you to use to talk to your GitHub without having to provide separate credentials, etc. Unfortunately, we didn't quite make the cut on that one.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that we're excited about that will definitely be coming in soon that you didn't have, there's so much to announce. So
integrations is a big area for us. There's a lot we're going to do there.
So that brought us through the whole week. Exciting set of announcements for this launch week. I know the team's already cranking on launch week 5, and that we're excited to get that out in a few months. Any final comments or anything else to share that I might have missed throughout the week?
For me, it's just always so proud of what this team's been able to bring together. Like, I mean, I'm just so astounded every time we hit this launch week. It's a massive set of announcements that we just did with, full Kubernetes support, changing the way the Steampipe internals work for the connection stuff, like a whole GitHub integration out there in pipes. Like, these are huge wins, totally new detect and correct model for Flowpipe. Really talented team doing incredible things at a great pace. And, we just love the feedback from our community. Let us know what you want to see in pipes and in Steampipe and in Flowpipe or anything around there in guardrails. Like, for people who are letting us know, you're seeing it come out in the launch weeks, right? And if you're not telling us yet, you should be, because then you'll see the things you care about start to come out in the launch weeks. We genuinely are listening. You can see it in Slack, and we're always asking you questions and always helping. We want to know where you want to go and what you want. And then we're super focused on giving you that plus more, right? So I just love that cycle. I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, the voice of customer is key for us.
100%. Yeah. That's why we're open about everything. That's why we do our videos. That's why we do the open source. That's why our demos aren't locked behind a, sign up form, because we want you to see our stuff and collaborate with us.
100%. And that community has been awesome. The amount of messaging and feedback and the contributions of code. Super grateful for the community helping driving the strategy.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. I'll just echo a bit of what Nathan had said. It's just obviously I work for Turbot, but and work on a variety of things at different times. But for me, always just cool to see each launch week what we end up doing and how we end up doing such really significant improvements to most, if not all, of our products each launch week, where multiple guardrails improvements, Steampipe, Powerpipe, Flowpipe, pipes, just so many that we just keep continuing to grow. And at the same time, we've been able to still deliver such strong new feature sets, improvements, whatever it might be, to each of those continuously. And for me, that's just the cool part, to see what, as an overall team, we're able to accomplish each launch week. Just even for me, again, working here, just really cool to kind of see what we put out every launch week and what new features we're bringing forward.
One of the things that Cody and I talk about and really enjoy, and we take seriously at Turbot, of course, as well, is just watching the growth of the different individuals in the company as well, from launch week to launch week, as they're able to take on a bigger responsibility or a huge challenge, or, really learn through a pain point on that. So, to me, it's so exciting watching. One of the reasons we're able to deliver is because people keep getting better and growing as we're doing that process. So it's really fun. It's hard work, but it's fun.
I want to thank you both for talking with me through the launch week. Really excited for launch week 5 that's coming up. And love for folks that are listening, watching, please share your feedback. We want to hear from you, like Nathan said, and look forward to the next launch week.
Awesome. Thank you.
You guys.
Thanks.